Hi, my name is Arthur, and this is What's Pouring. I wanted to ask for kind of a brief update of where your San Juan Bautista project is at the current point in time.
Sure. I bought some property in near the funny little town of San Juan Bautista in San Benito County. San Juan Bautista is not far from Highway 101. It's about 12 miles south of Gilroy and about 10 or 12 miles west of Hollister. Anyways, it's a beautiful property. It's an amazing property. It's 280 acres, of which we're going to end up planting, I hope, 80 or 85. We've planted so far just 1/2 acre of Pinot Noir. Looking at the weather reports this week, or the weather data, it's bloody hot there this week. It's supposed to be. It's actually a fairly cool area, moderate area, but this week it hasn't. It's been hotter there than in Davis, of all places. But nevertheless, I'm hoping we can do something interesting with Pinot, just a little bit. The main thrust of the planting will be Rhone varieties and some Italian grapes, but it's going to be very old-fangled, if you will, state-of-the-art, late 19th century, which is to say, head-trained, non-irrigated vines, if we can pull it off, no wire, no trellis, kind of really look like an old vineyard.
When we were gathering some questions to present to you, what occurred to me is that there's a certain amount of misconception about you and your branding in a number of ways, and part of that is sort of historical too, in the sense that some people aren't quite sure what brands Randall Grahm owns, mm-hmm. what Randall Grahm stands behind, what he's affiliated with. Mm-hmm. If you can, we know you're synonymous with Bonnie Doon.
Not everybody knows that. Some people imagine that I sold Bonnie Doon and I'm sort of out in some outer orbit somewhere.
Right. Somebody asked, didn't he sell that to the wine group?
Right.
Well, we know you've parted ways with Big House.
Correct.
Now, you were affiliated, or still are, with Pacific Rim.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that and any other...
Well, here's the Reader's Digest condensed version.
Perfect.
A little over 4 years ago, I sold 2 of our large brands, Big House and Cardinals Inn, to the wine group. They bought the brand, they bought the inventory, they're going forward and doing what they will with it. I also owned Pacific Rim, and I still own, we had Pacific Rim as a brand under the Bonnie Doon aegis. I spun that off as a separate company, which I continue to own, but that's operated independently of Bonnie Doon. And then further, I shrunk the product portfolio. So we had imported wines, we stopped the importation, we shrunk the number of brands that we produce, and we're really trying to get more focused on smaller lots, on biodynamically grown grapes, on wines that have more distinctiveness and personality, and ultimately, I hope, will someday express something like terroir.
Very cool. So it's just, there we have it.
There you have it.
Okay, so reader questions.
Yep.
I'm going to start light or heavy?
Doesn't matter, just at random.
Okay. Well, this one comes to us from New York City. Lowell, who asks the following question. How can he believe in disproven mumbo-jumbo like astrology and homeopathy and have enough brain function to continue walking, breathing, and speaking?
I don't know. I'm just a neurological anomaly.
I presume Lowell's talking about biodynamics.
Well,
and we
yeah,
spoke a little bit.
Here's the deal, Lowell. Here's the deal. You know what? I can't explain why biodynamics works scientifically in our Western way of thinking. It does seem to be mumbo jumbo. Homeopathy, I don't know if anyone's ever explained a cogent reason why homeopathy works, but it seems to work. At least many people believe homeopathy works. It works for me. Biodynamics also seems to work. I can only say that when you do it, you produce more interesting wine. That's why I do it. Honestly, I don't think people should have a problem with biodynamic wines simply because they don't understand the methodology of why it works. At the end of the day, they should really be focused on, do they like the wine or not? If they like the wine, they really shouldn't, and the wine is made in a benign fashion. We're not putting strychnine in it particularly. We're not using any sort of synthetic materials or any pesticides. So if the wine is made in a wholesome fashion, whether you agree with the ideology, belief system, religion, whatever it is that whatever the particular characteristics of the maker, ultimately the relevant question is, the politics of the maker, ultimately the relevant question is, do you like the wine or not? And that's what you should be focused on.
There you go, Lowell. So here's a question that sort of ties in. This comes from Larry in the San Ynez Valley. Larry is a winemaker. Larry asks, what are your thoughts on natural wines, and do you think the term is more about practices or marketing?
That's a profound question. That's a profound question. I mean, ultimately, marketing permeates every molecule of everything. I mean, marketing is ubiquitous. There's no such thing. I don't think there's a differentiation between marketing and non-marketing. But having said that, I think natural wines the word should have some meaning, and it does have some meaning. There could be areas of gray as far as what is natural, what is perceived to be natural. For example, I mean, we use indigenous yeast rather than cultured yeast. Is that more natural? In some sense, yes. Is it ultimately kind of a profound difference in the wine? I would suggest not. We try not to acidulate our wines. Some of our wines we acidulate a little bit. Okay, is that natural? Well, probably the ones that are unacidulated are more natural. Are they necessarily better for that? If they need acid, we add acid. I think ultimately, like everything else, it's a question of degrees, and I think maybe you could say there are degrees of naturalness, or there are degrees of non-affectation. I think wines that are made in a less manipulated style are generally, for me, more appealing. There's a integrity to them. There's a thread of authenticity that runs through them that is appealing to me. Now, a purely natural wine, where a winemaker has had no intervention whatsoever, a la Frank Cornelissen, for some people is a moving, a pleasurable experience. For others, myself included, the wines are just weird and strange. And I want to like them and I want to understand them, but they're just weird and strange. I think some amount of intervention on the part of the winemaker is necessary, at least for me, to make the kind of wines that I want to make. Does that make them slightly less natural? Possibly. But we put sulfur in our wines. Is that less natural? Well, I think a little bit of sulfur, the minimum that we can use that protects the integrity of the wine, is appropriate. And I think that would still potentially fall into the realm of natural.
I wanted to touch on something you said. You talked about, was it integrity and dignity of one that you can kind of
I don't know about dignity, but integrity,
used?
or certain wines have a, I think integrity. In other words, when there's not a lot of intervention, they seem to have a quality of being themselves, or straightforwardness, or frankness.
So the question is, and a lot of people will say, well, is that a conclusion you come to when you blindly put the wine to your nose and your mouth, or is that something you sort of arrive at knowing that farmer XYZ grew these wines in a biodynamic manner, and winemaker ABC did it in a non-interventionist style? What is it that that captures your
Yeah.
attention and makes you go, there's integrity here, there's that frankness.
Yeah. You know, as tasters, we are imperfect instruments. We really are. I mean, we get fooled all the time. I get fooled all the time. And sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't get it. And it's hard for me to expect other people to get my wines all the time. And some people like them, some people are less crazy about them. If you know a little bit about the winemaker's intentions, you know a little bit about the winemaker's professed beliefs or practices, you can get, you know, this is why they say when you seeing the label of a wine is often extremely helpful in understanding what the heck you should be looking for. So if you know what you're looking for, I think it's sometimes easier to find it.
Although Pinot would say you're sort of looking because you're seeing it because you're expecting it.
Correct, but you know that's how we are. I mean, we see the world. We see the world based on what we expect to see. You know, we don't expect to see men on the moon, so we don't see men on the moon.
Foucault's grid of interpretation. Sorry.
Yeah, but let's see, where were we? So
perceiving and being imperfect and detecting this frankness and integrity.
Well, you know, honestly, I mean, for example, this is I pour the Albarino sometimes for people, and I don't know why I say this, but it has a ring of truth of it for me. That particular wine, for me, sometimes is more eloquent in what it doesn't do as in what it does do. So in other words, sometimes when you turn off all the bells and whistles and you turn off all the things that attend a wine, it just strikes you in a different way. When you turn off the oak, when you turn off the malolactic, when you turn off all these things that kind of, these stylized elements of a wine, when they're absent, suddenly the wine just has a different, as a plainness and a straightforwardness that I get. I don't know whether anyone else does, but it's, for me it's very, very refreshing.
There's a good deal of interest in your Salon Bautista project, as well as sort of your philosophy and your pursuit of vin de terroir.
Mm-hmm.
So this question comes from Jonathan in New York City. And he asks, aside from a never-ending quest to produce vin de terroir, where did the inspiration come for your new passion project in San Juan Bautista?
Well, I could answer that a lot of different ways, but it's essentially mortality looking me in the face, and just trying to sort of do something interesting with the rest of my life, above and beyond making a buck, above and beyond creating some cute wine labels. You know, if I were to die anytime soon, they would say, what a great marketer he was. And this is unacceptable. And, you know, the point is, for me, I mean, why does anyone do anything? You know, we work in service of the ego. I mean, we want people to think to believe how smart we are and how clever and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, I think I've been given a unique set of opportunities, and I've been given certain privileges in my experience whereby I think I actually can think about making a vin de terroir wine in a very special way. And so what I'm trying to do is basically just utilize the gifts that I've been given and try to make something of it above and beyond, you know, a cute wine label or an interesting brand. And for me, a terroir wine is the only kind of wine that the world really needs. The world has got plenty of wine. There's like way enough wine, more than enough wine. So just making another good wine is kind of beside the point for me. So whether I succeed or not is sort of somewhat beside the point. I really want to feel I've given it, you know, the old college try.